Hey there, seekers and shapeshifters, healers and expanders. Welcome to the Embodied Spirit Uncensored. I'm Nicole D'Alessandro, and I am here to guide you through an in-depth experience like no other, channeled from higher wisdom through me directly to you. This is a place for those who dare to delve deeper, who crave transformation beyond the conventional, and who are ready to embrace the mystical union of science and spirit. Here at the Embodied Spirit, we don't just scratch the surface, we dive into the very depths of existence. Prepare to be challenged, to change, and to elevate into a new version of yourself. We're inviting you into an entirely new world, a realm that extends far beyond your physical being. So if you're ready to transform your understanding and awaken to your true spirit, you're in the right place. Let's embark on this profound journey together. Hello and welcome to Embodied Spirit Uncensored. I'm Nicole D'Alessandro, your host, and today I'm going to talk to a favourite topic of mine, the Law of One. And the Law of One, I've only really been deep diving into for the last few years, and how it came about, how I started to envelop or engage with this universal law is I started picking up objects and crystals, and I was getting insights and wisdoms like downloads or drop-ins. So I would hear voices or hear these energies speak to me and give me insights that would just leave me fucking mind blown. And I questioned it, and it took me on a journey of research. And the more I researched the Law of One, the more I got to understand the teachings that all things, all life, all of creation is part of one original thought. And according to this principle, we're all connected through our inherent oneness. And you'll hear beautiful quotes, famous quotes like Rumi, you are not a drop in the ocean, you are the ocean in a drop. That relates to this universality that we are, this oneness that we all contain, and that each individual soul is a fragment of a larger universal consciousness. And when we speak through the lens of God, you might or might not have heard that saying, God creates us in the image and likeness of themselves. What I come to understand that meaning is that in the creation of God's image, we are God in a reflection. So when we look at another, in essence, we are looking at God. So it gets a little bit philosophical. And I'm not going to go into reading objects, psychometry, which is now what I teach in embodied spirituality. It is a quality that you would love to have in your world. I use and integrate it and weave it into how we work within offices, within communities, because once you learn about this universal law of oneness and you learn to harmonize the field of energy that you work with and the people around you, and you see these essences play out in practice, there's a sense of freedom in it. And this philosophy underscores the interconnectedness of all beings, and it promotes unity and understanding. So in my initial moments of working with the Law of One, what I was able to do with my clients, particularly as a trauma therapist, is, and I've worked with some really challenging characters. I've worked with family courts, the judicial system. I've worked with perpetrators, people who have suffered immense, complex PTSD through war, through seeing death and violence. I've worked with different ethnicities and cultures, and I've met some people who have done some really horrible things. And once I started to embody the Law of One, I learned to love the people that I've worked with. And this might be hard for you to wrap your head around. And in fact, this work doesn't come from a place necessarily of intellectual intelligence. It comes from surrendering the intellect and diving deeper into the energetics and the soul parts or the God parts or the divine parts, that universal part of you that isn't sense-making. So when I learned to love my clients, and I used to talk to Jagman about this, he was like, how can you love your clients and how can you accept and come from a place of non-judgment and not hold any resentment or any ill harm towards a person that has done wrong or hurt another being. And like I said, it's a hard concept to get your head around. But when you start to really unravel in this, what I've come to believe is that we have all at moments been perpetrators. We have all at moments been fraudulent. We have all told lies. We've all done deceitful things. Obviously, different spectrums and layers to that. But there's this other saying that he who casts the first stone, no one on this planet that I have yet to meet is free from any negligence or behavior that has hurt another being. So that was one thing that started to really show up in my space, is I had this connectedness to these people and had no other than love for them in their despair, in their challenging moments, in the choices that they've made. And that is where unshaming happens, is when another person is seen in love through the lens of universe. They're able to see their reflection. Now, for some of you, you run for your life. When I see you as universal, as wholeness, as infinite, and I see through the things that you have done because of what you've had to endure in your life, it is very vulnerable and confronting, but it can also be very beautiful. That is where the work of unshaming and bringing shadow to light comes to. And without shadow, without darkness, we can't birth creation. So this idea that light and shade are better or worse, one is better than the other, or one should be buried and kept buried and the other brought to light, is false. So as I started to reflect on the law of one, I was in a session with a student, a very highly evolved medium who is also an Akashic scribe, Akasha meaning space, Akashic scribe meaning she has access to space records, which if you were to go to research, many different beliefs on this, but the Akashic records are space records, or they're not even space. They're a universal energy that hold the seeds of creation. All of your soul's journey through universe, through life, all of the lessons, the karma, all of the experiences, the expressions, the birthing places, the learnings, the teachings, everything your soul has experienced over its life are held in the Akasha, in the Akashic record. And this particular student of mine is a very gifted Akashic scribe. Funny enough, she actually works in a library too. And there are archangels that support, and Thoth, Archangel Metatron, they work very closely at honouring those scribes, and she works with them quite closely. I'm going off. This is giving you context into how the law of one started to show up in my life. So initially it was through picking up objects, getting clarity, getting insights, getting bits of information that just blew my mind. I questioned it for a long time. I started to read and research the law of one, the underpinnings of, going back through ancestral lines, lives, regressions, working with my own light worker / healer who also speaks light language, working with my coaches who are very clever and very skilled in teaching the esoteric underpinnings through science. So that was the initial start, research, getting drop-ins, getting curious. And then one day I was running a circle, this beautiful Akashic scribe, V, was in the session and she had introduced me to Ra. And I'd never worked with Ra, and Ra had dropped in moments in sessions for other clients, but never really for me. And she'd said that Ra was going to be working with me over the coming months and just to invite them in, and the process began. And the law of one is very much associated with the Ra contact or the teachings of Ra. And there is actually a lot of literature on the Ra contact and the Ra material. Through that, it's called that. And as I became familiar with this energy, what I started to experience was some really beautiful embodied practices that I was guided towards around the discipline of living into the law of one. And so how I have brought it in, I've brought it in with Ra and with Archangel Metatron to help my students live into this unity. Because when you see yourself in the other, as the other, when you are able to deeply love self in all of your expressions, in all of your parts, in the shame, in the frustrations, in the anger, in the jealousy, in the envy, in all of the shadowy, negating parts of life that we've been conditioned to cast out as wrong and bury. When you learn to love those parts, when you also learn to love the kindness, the gratitude, the deep, intentional love that you give to others, when you bring all of that together into a unified sense of self, into the center of your being, which is your heart, you are free. Ra states in the Ra contact and through the Ra material that this is a discipline of the mind, the body, and the spirit integration. And the first part is silencing the mind, so sitting in a still, calm state of being regularly to open up the doorways of the mind so that you can access the bothness of who you are. And even if you think about, we have a left and a right, and we talk about polarity. I've talked about polarity on here, cause and effect, the law of vibration, attraction. All of those qualities lead into the law of one. Because in the polarization, in the this and the that, when you bring those two together, there is a unification, there is wholeness. And that's why I love yoga and I teach yoga. When I teach yoga, it is about aligning, coming back to the principles of the law of one. It's a discipline, it's around alignment, it's around bringing all of your fields, all of your energy into a congruent state of being so there is flow. There is a state of one and wholeness. So you reconnect and remember all of these essences of who you are. And from there, you are able to fully function in your wholeness in a capacity that is a gift. And now I can't, even through my experience, my marriage, my earlier life of life being messy, when I started to see this, I could lead from a place of love, not resentment. And it didn't, even though I react and I fall into old patterns, I'm able to quickly come back to and reflect on the law of one, the teachings of Ra, and it allows me to show up in a more integral, congruent space, and it frees me of carrying the burdens that are not mine. So when a person is projecting their hatred, when a person is resenting me or blaming me or accusing me of lies or accusing me of fraudulent behavior, accusing me of having a personality disorder, what I'm able to do is understand that through their lens, they are looking at themselves in me. So what they see in me is what they are seeing in them. And it's too much for a person to bear that responsibility, to own that they are a fraud, that they are a liar, that they have at times been deceitful, that they have at times hated or been hated. So now what I do is I go, okay, how can I reflect that in me? Where in me is that person showing me the work? Where do I need to go and look at my qualities of jealousy, of resentment, of fraudulent behaviors, of having a black and white sort of thinking? Where do I project? Where do I get angry? So rather than keep back and forthing and projecting it onto the other, can you receive it and just take it, but not only see it as the wholeness? That is not the whole picture, it's part of the picture. What I've learned over a long-term marriage of 34 years in relation with Jagman is the longer I only saw him and I saw this desperation for love through him outside of myself, the longer I punished myself and disconnected from wholeness because I was only seeing a part. And when I became very addicted to Jagman over 34 years, I was also addicted to a love that wasn't in the right place until I started to turn in and become more graceful, to soften, to own all of the parts of me that I wanted to project out, once I started to really see who I was as a whole and take back that beautiful love and responsibility for loving self, I was able to free Jagman, but also free myself in the expectation of it being his responsibility to love me and therefore me feel loved. Because if you are looking outside of yourself and you are consumed by pleasing someone, doing everything in your power to make them love you, you're going to be left lopsided. You're going to be left abandoning your values, and you are going to be left only seeing a part of yourself through the other. I would implore you to go and research. If this speaks to you, then this is not something you can get your head around in one sitting. I'm just poking some little insights in that you might want to go and explore. How we go about it often in my practices, and you would have heard this a lot, we talk about it a lot, in the context of forgiveness and gratitude. So the only way I could free myself of being obsessed and addicted to a love outside of myself through Jagman was to forgive myself, because I lost integrity through that. I used to get very angry because it wasn't reciprocated. There wasn't a response. All Jagman kept showing me was disregard, disconnect. The more I leaned in, the more he leaned out. And it was like this cat and mouse sort of game. So I had to first forgive that. I had to forgive the part of me that abused our relationship, that abused people in my life because of the lack that I saw, because of the lopsidedness, because of the abandonment of my entire wholeness and my values. I had to forgive myself. I had to find gratitude in this life, in all of the things that had happened to me, for me, because of me. And then I was able to then deeply transform through that within the framework of the law of one. And that's what I help people do. Now, this pseudo-gratitude, forgiveness, I've sort of shifted from that as I've worked with different coaches. I'm probably more about gratitude. I think sometimes forgiveness, particularly when you're forgiving another, it implies that they've done something wrong. And I believe that everything is as it's meant to be. So this equanimity in life is things are as they are, and because they are exactly how they are supposed to be. So rather than forgiveness now, I've put it in here because you might speak that language still, but for me it's more about gratitude. And if we go into forgiveness, it's a pathway to unity. It allows us to release the illusions of separation and individual faults and to embrace a collective interconnected essence. The more I was able to release this illusion of it's not fair, I never can get it right. I was always looking, my spirit guides were saying, leave him be. Stop looking out there. Stop trying to get something outside of yourself. It's not out there. I even had a giant in one of my visions stomp their foot and redirect me back to the earthly planes of existence to refocus on myself rather than on Jagman. And I tell you, when you're addicted to something, it's fucking hard. It requires immense discipline to keep coming back, to keep redirecting your focus. So in this forgiveness, we're able to release the illusions of separation, because I'm no angel, neither are you. And if you can sit here and say you've honestly never done anything bad towards someone, not intentionally, we don't intentionally go out to hurt people, some people do, but we become so self-centered and selfish in what we want from someone or what we want from the world that we lose ourselves in that. And that's where there's a congruence that there's no congruence, there's a lack. So by forgiving others, we acknowledge that their actions do not exist in isolation, but are a part of a larger tapestry of interactions in which we are all entwined. And this helps dissolve barriers, fostering a sense of oneness and peace. So rather than look at how a person is carrying something, so if they're showing up shit, if they're behaving in bad ways, there's a big conversation around narcissists. I work with narcissists. I find it is a self-defense mechanism. Sure, they're manipulative. Sure, there is challenges. Sure, they're not nice. If you are living with one or working with one, yes, you absolutely have to have very strong boundaries, but they are humans too, who have generally been through very traumatic experiences in their earlier childhood. And they are in a self-defense, nervous system, hypervigilant situation where the only way they can feel safe, if ever, is to seek control and fuel. And I'm going to leave that because otherwise I'll go off on a whole other tangent. But the more you see the grossness in another, the more you are denying that in yourself. And so the more you forgive those parts and redirect. Someone said to me the other day, is when you point the finger at someone and you are consumed by what they are doing and what they are not doing and how they are hurting you or not hurting you, there are 3 fingers pointing back at you. Those 3 fingers pointing back at you is a sign. Turn that fucking finger and point it in towards yourself. Look at yourself. Look at how you can change, set boundaries, create choices, walk away, expand, find a support system. I had another person ask me that had had a failed relationship the other day. After quite close to the end of the session, they'd asked some really good questions. They'd come to a bit more curiosity, and they were still asking at the end. An engineer, so very logic-based, very pragmatic in their thinking, able to fix problems generally in their work. And this was really challenging them because relationships, when you're trying to fix it or look at the other to fix, you're left with a bit of a problem because relationships and people are really not needing to be fixed. And I suggested that, all right, so what did you do when you were in your studies or when you hit roadblocks or when you hit stuck points in your business and you can't fix a piece of machinery? What do? I seek out help. I get a tutor. I get someone that maybe knows or has a different set of lenses or can see a different thing than I can. Well, that's what I'm suggesting to you. If this is all too much and you are in resistance or you're at a stuck point in your life and you're feeling as though it doesn't matter what you do, you can't either stop looking out there, you can't stop fixing, you can't stop pleasing, you've got no boundaries, or you're in blame, you're in victim, you are filled with self-hate, you're in a deep pit of shame, you don't know how to be in the world. What's my suggestion to you is find a tutor, find a coach, find a support system, stay in the relationship, build safety. When you want to run, stay. When someone sees you in love, through love, in your darkest, deepest, hidden places, parts, in your narcissistic qualities, we all have them, in your fraudulent behaviors, in your lies, if you can show up in that state, even though it feels like death by 1,000, don't even know the right word, stings, maybe, 1,000 bee stings, it feels like that, stay. Breathe and keep coming back to that supportive network, no matter what your mind tells you, because in relationship, without needing to fix anyone, there is the law of one, there is freedom, there is forgiveness, and there will be a sense of gratitude and transformation on the other side of that. So we've talked about forgiveness, we've talked about the Ra contact, and Ra is, I'm going to explain a little bit more about Ra in a minute. But I want to get to gratitude. Gratitude is an affirmation of the interconnectedness celebrated in the law of one. It's an acknowledgement of the roles that every part of our universe plays in the creation of our personal and collective experience. Expressing gratitude opens up our hearts to the flow of universal love and abundance and aligning us more closely with our true nature as parts of a whole. Now, I'm not talking about the gratitude that is sort of pseudo gratitude that is a little bit of bullshit in our society now. I'm so grateful, for this and that, and it's a bit fluffy. There's no depth to that. And your mind will have an absolute field day of doing its best to prove why your life is shit and why you've got nothing to be grateful for. My suggestion is just to tap into the brain and the patternings of it is the gratitude you want to start with is something that brings tears to your eyes. You want to feel it in your bones. You want to sit with. And I was speaking to one of my other students today, my clients, about hating cooking. And we've all gone through moments. There's always this martyr in a particular mother who has been married for a long time, who's been doing the cooking for 20 odd years for 3 different kids, all having different experiences. We live in a world right now where, we tend to enable, and I might be setting myself up for some judgment here, but we try to make everybody fucking happy. And in our family, we try to, give children choices, and then it becomes this fine line between no boundaries. And she was saying how she's got to cook a different meal for every person, and it gets tiring, and then one person likes this food and the other person likes that, and she hates cooking. So I pitched it to her. What's the alternative? What's the alternative to cooking? Not. So if you were to not cook, some people don't even have the money to put food on the table. How would that look? And this isn't to shame or judge anybody. This is just to give you some perspective. If you were to not have any money to buy the food to cook for your children, to not be able to give them nutrition, to not be able to send them to school with their lunch. I know plenty of students and children that I've met across life for whatever reason, families in great distress, facing adversity and trauma, and they don't come to school with lunch, and they feel deeply ostracised and isolated because they know they're different to their friends. So think about it from that lens, is what am I missing here when I'm cooking and hating it? What is the alternative? If I was to not cook, I said, get a chef. How much does a chef cost? Don't even know. Well, why don't you go on that journey and look into it? What are the options? And when you can see that you have options, and for those of you that don't feel like, if you are battling, you're living out of your car, you're finding it hard to put food on the table, you are barely making ends meet, I just want to honour you, and I want to suggest that maybe by listening to this, you could be more creative and think about, all right, well, what do I have? I have a heart. I have a deep inherent value of survival. I want to make this work. So once you start to play out the choices and options in how you think, Man's Search for Meaning is another good book if you want to look at how a person transforms their life in a really shitty situation. It is the power of the mind, the ability to look at things from a universal wholeness and just sit with that. So we've got gratitude and forgiveness. Gratitude is around really inherently feeling a deep sense of gratitude for where you're at. The mind likes justification and rationale. So you could start a statement with, I am truly grateful for the students that I get to work with, and for being a highly successful coach in this industry of self-development and helping people live life on their terms. I'm so grateful for that because of all the effort, because of all the study, because of all the hours I have put into showing up for my community. So I've added on the end why I am so deeply grateful for the work that I do in this life and why. And then you've got a rationale. So whenever you sit in doubt, you can come back to that unified response of, well, this is why. I am this because of this. And your brain likes that. That's the intellect. So just talking a little bit about Ra, if you have never heard of Ra, very much linked to Egyptian connections, an entity that claims to be a group consciousness from the 6th density, which communicates through channeled processes. Ra did become widely known through the Law of One, through the Ra contact and the Ra material. I hadn't initially, that wasn't where I'd come into contact with Ra. It was through channeling energy for clients and through my Akashic Scribe V, who introduced me to Ra, the energy. And then I went to study afterwards. That's how I like to roll. I like to get the drop-ins first, the guidance, and then I'll go and research it just to prove myself that I'm not entirely batshit crazy, even though I am. So that is the Ra is an entity associated with the ancient Egyptian sun god of the same name. The Egyptian Ra was believed to be the god of the sun and creation, ruling the sky, earth, and underworld. However, the entity Ra in the Law of One material does not claim to be the deity itself, but instead states that they were mistaken for this god in ancient times. It's a collective. It's a big energy that is in universe, through universe, communicating as a universal oneness of entity. Again, take it, leave it, go and do your own research. Ra's teachings in the Law of One material encompass a wide range of topics, including cosmology, spiritual evolution, metaphysics, and various aspects of existence. And they speak on the structure of the universe, the progression of souls through different densities of consciousness, and the journey towards unity with the infinite creator. What is the purpose and mission? Well, Ra describes their purpose or their mission as aiding Earth and its inhabitants in the spiritual evolution. So they discuss the importance of seeking harmony and balance, understanding the self and the self's relationship with the universe. So to fully understand this, self-work is imminent. You must go on the journey of uncovering and exploring with deep curiosity who you are and who you are not. And who you are and who you're not is mind-blowing. And the more you know, the less you know. This is infinite. This is expansive. You will never fully, truly understand who you are and who you are not. And by knowing who you are and who you are not, it's contradictory, you will then be able to know other. So you will know self and self-other. So the more you know yourself, the more you know self in other. And that's where there's this beautiful unified conscious collaboration with others. And that's where peace comes from and more love. So talks to various aspects of existence through the progression of souls, through unity towards with the infinite creator. I've already said that. Also talking about the understanding of self and the self's relationship with the universe and advancing toward a realization of the oneness of all existence. The Law of One books have had a significant impact on contemporary spirituality. I think channeled in the 80s, contributing to discussions on channeling, the ascension process, the New Age metaphysics, and these teachings emphasize the complexity of the universe's spiritual dimension and propose a framework for understanding the interconnectedness of all entities and events. So Ra's message centers around the unity of existence and the importance of developing a consciousness that recognizes and acts upon this unity. So what I want to speak to as a trauma therapist moving into coaching and spiritual teaching, bringing in yogic philosophy, esoteric teachings, and the nature of energy, it is everybody's responsibility on this planet to develop an expanded consciousness. The world is changing, the energy is changing. Evolution states that moving into altered states of consciousness, becoming more curious around consciousness is the only way towards true sense of love and freedom. And the acts upon this unity through this is where you will be able to live into your most highest capacity and potential. The concepts introduced by Ra have been integrated into various spiritual practices and continue to influence those seeking a deeper understanding of the universe's metaphysical aspects. So there's a lot to take in. Christ taught us to love your neighbour as you love yourself, highlighting this universal truth that every person, emotion, and event is intricately connected to every other. In the infinite expanse of the universe, the concept of manyness dissolves into unity. This is a core teaching from the Ra material. We learn that an infinite creator is only one. There is only union. Every colour we perceive from sunlight through a prism is an expression of this unity, a simple yet profound illustration that in diversity there is underlying oneness. Living according to the Law of One means expressing unconditional love and recognising our direct relationship with the divine. This lifestyle doesn't just bring us closer to spiritual enlightenment, but also aligns us with the cosmic forces that advocate for our spiritual freedom and sovereignty. Through this, we partake in the cosmic mission to achieve liberation from the cycles of reincarnation and suffering in the lower worlds. So, like I mentioned, how do we integrate this high level of understanding into our daily lives? It starts with recognising the unity in all of our interactions and experiences. When you see others, try to see them as extensions of yourself and the different expressions of the same underlying reality. Practice this through acts of kindness, empathy. It's not fucking rocket science. A genuine effort to understand rather than judge. What I've come to see over the last few months is people are really bad at listening and trying to seek to understand. They always feel like they need to have an answer. They always feel like they need to fix. What that suggests is, in them needing an answer, in them needing to fix, there's resistance, and they are projecting out their discomfort on another person. And the Ra teachings remind us that we're more than just our physical bodies or our individual experiences. We are infinite. We are part of a continuous journey of understanding and expansion. Every challenge, joy, and interaction is a part of our dance through the vast cosmos of body, mind, and spirit. So I've got a little activity for you to do. And you might think, well, what the hell has this got to do with the Ra contact and the law of one? But it's actually an interesting one to think about, because I'm going to talk you through it first and I'll let you know what the philosophy is behind it. So it's about getting clear, right? You have 24 hours to live. How will you spend this last 24 hours? So that's the first question. You have 24 hours to live. How will you spend it? Where would you go? What would you do? And who would you want to be with? So just write a bit of a reflection, because there's clues in there about this law of one and the person that you'd want to spend it with and the things that you'd like to be doing will give you insight into other and how you relate to other and what are the similarities in other that you see in yourself. So that's a bit of a reflection. And then you could just ask yourself, what would you want to say to these people? Why did you bring them? Why were they important? And you can write a short message to them, what's left unsaid. So if you were to spend this last 24 hours of life as you know it on this planet now, what has been left unsaid? What do you want to see in the other that is in yourself? What do you need to forgive in yourself? How you've behaved, how they've behaved. What lies have you told? What lies have they told? What have they challenged you? What have you gotten out of these experiences? What are the blessings in these people that have come into your life that you want to spend the last 24 hours with? And if you are deeply resistant to doing this, what are you not seeing? What are you missing in this? What are they showing you? I'm going to leave you with that. I hope it hurt your brains. I hope it's really challenged you. I imagine this might annoy some of you and I welcome it. I also say to my people, go and prove me wrong. Go and get on your bandwagon and negate it, resist it. And I would say that in that resistance, in that bandwagon of that's a crock of shit, or I'm going to reject that, or I'm going to just say she is actually batshit crazy in all the bad ways, I'm going to suggest that you are looking at yourself there and you would absolutely want to go and just spend some time on this, sit with it, feel into it, think about what emotions are coming up. Maybe it's a sense of nausea, whatever it is. And I've got a smile on my face because I don't take this work lightly, but I find immense joy and pleasure in it. And I turn shit to gold. I find joy in the shittiest of expressions. If you can't find joy in your expression, if you are in a projection of hate and disgust and you are looking at other people and you are hidden in shame, I would love to have a conversation with you privately about this and develop a relationship based on this universal law of one. But for now, you know my answer. Go and do this work. Go and celebrate the shadows and the light and find wholeness in both, and see if you can find a sense of appreciation and gratitude and forgive yourself and stop being so hard on yourself and others for where you're at, where you should be, where you used to be. I love you all. Stay batshit crazy. Until next time. Thank you for joining us on The Embodied Spirit Uncensored. Today's journey may have ended, but your personal transformation has only just begun. So keep channeling the insights and energies from our episode. And as you move forward, remember, this podcast is for those who are not just living, but are seeking to live profoundly. Continue to explore, expand and evolve with us. Make sure to follow this series. Connect with us on Instagram at Nicole D'Alessandro Perth. or visit www.nicoledelisandro.com.au for more transformative content. You can also find me on Facebook at Nicole Delisandro. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and more importantly, stay batshit crazy as you embody and explore beyond your current realm of existence. I'll see you later for now, and remember, this journey to embodying your spirit is the most significant journey you'll ever undertake.